to some of the headlines from today. Well, turning to the Miro Digital Board, running through the conference, I'm going to whisk you through some takeaways, and you have to bear with me whilst I share that screen. Now visible in all of our respective home offices. So highlights from the start of the day, looking back. We heard from Robert Courts, the good news that there is the development of a roadmap to support aviation's recovery in progress. Perhaps much more significantly for West London, that there is a global travel task force in which the UK is active there to try and resolve the issue of testing, which is reported in November. So I think we'll be watching that very, very closely. We also heard from SEMA that, of course, this proposal for a West London innovation district will see us as part of a family of innovation districts. So turning to our conversation, jumping around a bit, I'm going to turn to our conversation with John Holland Kay. He was, I think, open to this idea of an associate Freeport, that status potentially being part of a master plan that could be developed with the local community, of course, again, needing government backing. He highlighted how some of the facilities aren't necessarily well master planned, that they've evolved in quite a way over the years, and that improvements to that infrastructure need to happen with or without expansion. But he hugely emphasised the importance of getting a testing regime in place. I think he was optimistic looking forward to COP26 and the year ahead, that international agreement to address carbon in aviation was possible, that critical shift from kerosene to sustainable fuels. Moving on to our future of aviation and global transport session, we had some positive reflections that decoupling of carbon emissions from growth is already underway and in progress, and that Heathrow, along with a number of partners, have been backed by Innovate UK in a flight programme, which is just about to kick off. We had the reflection that we could set ourselves the ambition to make flight carbon negative if we were to put away more carbon than we emit. So really raising our goals and ambitions there. Another panelist shared that urban air mobility is the new opportunity. Drones are already in action in West London. It was observed by Julia Buckingham from Brunel that the UK is a world leader in research, 16% of the world's research output, and we need to crack on with converting that into local social impact and commercial benefit. Heathrow being the perfect place for an innovation district with all the ingredients there. We also heard, I think, from one of our delegates, the reflection of how critical it is to the effort that there's early and consistent identification of startup and emerging technologies to meet the challenges presented by carbon neutral requirements. As we got into the breakout sessions, there was obviously a much deeper dive into what all of this might mean. Highlights from the digital session, we heard from Fujitsu that there's an opportunity to develop a transport-focused digital arena in West London. Magway offered up the opportunity of a fundamentally new way to move goods around, of course, powered by electricity. And we heard, I thought perhaps rather intriguingly, that even a dairy cow can now be part of the Internet of Things. There was also, of course, a reflection. We heard from a few speakers today that, of course, aviation traffic patterns are going to change in future. There was strong emphasis on the need for vendor involvement in education to ensure that technology is contextualized in the workplace in the education setting. Even the role of a truck driver will become much more customer focused i.e. new skills for everyone. In the green session, we heard about the cost of flying using hydrogen potentially being financially competitive over using jet fuel in future. We also heard about the work underway now at Cranfield to make that fueling of planes a reality, and also some emphasis on the role of pilots being able to take action today in changing their behaviours to limit noise and pollution in the way that they use engines when they land and taxi. Fast forwarding to the global session, and we heard reflections around the importance of the airport potentially thinking about itself as a high street in the extent to which things have got to change. Our high streets, of course, very significantly disrupted through these times. The positive insight that logistics is now starting to embed itself in our local colleges and schools. Also, the thought that the DIT could be providing more support for companies to crack on with exports for the first time. In our innovation session, the fourth and final of our breakouts, we heard, this is going to test my eyesight a bit, in fact I might even have to zoom in, that as an investor into West London, it was important that we had the investor voice around the table. What's really tremendous about today is that it helps ensure that London remains the centre of attention in the world as a centre for arts, entertainment and technology. There was also emphasis on the role of human-centred design as we move forward with the development of an innovation district, thinking about space and putting people first to create the right environment for sustained innovation. And also in that session, White City was spotlighted, one of my favourite locations in West London, as a massive transformation over the past 18 months. And finally, of course, in our recent session on future jobs, 3 takeaways. Lord Blunkett reflecting that not everyone's ready to embrace technology. It can feel like a threat to many people's jobs. Wonderful stories, I thought, from Singapore Airlines of the incentives for staff to innovate and the potential there for new connections with a local innovation system in West London, and also a very strong message around short courses, that DFE really needs to embrace short courses as an important ingredient moving forward. In terms of how we're moving forward as a conference team, I think it's important to say some of you will have seen on the Miro board this diagram. It explains what's going to happen at our new home for the project, the CRL Accelerator in Hayes, where over the next few months, those of you that have signed up to our sort of stakeholder declaration of support and key conference partners, we will be working through with us the outcomes that we need to achieve critically from this innovation district that will then drive our collaboration moving forward. Our home, our new home, you can see behind me on the screen. This is what the CRL looks like. If you haven't yet visited Hayes, I'm going to sort of duck for a moment there. You can see the CRL brand behind me. The CRL is home to robotic startup Bots and Us, amongst many others. And if you visited Heathrow's HQ last year, you might have seen their robots in trials. Anyway. That's it from me. We've got an exciting few months ahead. I'm looking forward to the hackathons, pitch days, and much else that will flow out of the Innovation District. Plenty to do, but back for now to you, Christian.
That is quite incredible. I'm amazed how quickly you pulled all that together. Who knew that stickies could be put together so neatly and comprehensively? Just tell us, though, before I let you go, where, if people want to look at that and look at it in more depth, how do they continue to do that?
Absolutely. I think there's a link that we shared beforehand, but we will certainly be repeating it, I'm sure, in the chat window right now, and also circulating it with the conference sort of follow-up papers. So it's out there for to share with friends and family too.
Brilliant. Well, do take a look at that and do contribute to that. And Andrew, thank you so much to get your thoughts on all of those panel discussions that we've had.